alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Thikra Studios Podcast. We are with our guest, our beautiful guest from Young, New South Wales, Sheikh Abdulghani. And he's, mashallah, a frequent guest, actually so much so that sometimes when we announce that he's coming and we have an interstate guest, I have some of the youngers come up to me and they say, he's from Melbourne, isn't he? Like, he's always here, subhanAllah. He's always giving durus here at HRYC, alhamdulillah. So, welcome, Sheikh.
Jazakumullah khair, Allah yabarak feekum. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Always a pleasure. Alhamdulillah, it's no secret. It's no secret that Melbourne is a place that's dear to my heart, and primarily because of this place and you brothers.
Alhamdulillah.
And maybe other things as well. I have a soft spot for Melbourne, subhanAllah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So we see you very often, but we want to get out from you today is what is your background? Where did your journey of seeking knowledge start, and what inspired you to take this, path?
Oh, so
we'll go step by step. So your upbringing.
Look, firstly, I would say, after, of course, thanking and praising Allah Azza wa Jal for everything. Because without the will and might and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing would be possible. This is the reality. This is something that it's not that you necessarily plan and put together and have in your mind. This is something that, subhanAllah, I believe Allah Azza wa Jal makes easy for us. It's something, a path that Allah Azza wa Jal, I think, paves for us. So, of course, da'iman wa abadan, alhamdulillah. Because without Allah's will, none of this is possible. But if you want to take the asbab, and without a doubt, I think it started in the household. Alhamdulillah, I grew up in a fairly conservative family, which, growing up in Australia in the mid-80s, coming to Australia in the mid-80s, and then growing up in Australia in the 80s and 90s, conservative Muslim families were not, were not many.
Yeah,
rare.
Yeah, they were very, very rare. Families where, children were not allowed to do were allowed to do whatever they wanted were were plentiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so alhamdulillah, that's first of all. I grew up in a quite conservative family. My father and my mother, Allah yarhamha, may Allah reward them. They pretty much taught us the importance of taking and being on this path.
Yeah.
My father, in his own way, was involved in da'wah in some capacity in his teenage years and early in his life, being part of a particular movement which we won't mention. But he's lived a life where he's been involved some way somehow in da'wah, and as I mentioned, because I grew up in a conservative household, alhamdulillah, many things sort of came second nature.
Yeah.
So learning, one of the things that actually blew my mind, because a lot of things you don't remember, and you think, how do you not remember these things? I actually, subhanAllah, some of these things have you not seen something that reminds you of that particular event, you would say, when did this happen? And I remember, subhanAllah, because we all have this maybe small element of arrogance in us. We think, I did this. This is something I chose to do, and because it was my hard work, and may Allah Azza wa Jal protect us from this attribute. But I remember I was saying, I wanted to take this path, and I wanted to do this, and then subhanAllah, I think it was maybe 15 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, I came across some certificates. They were my certificate. I was completely like I'd forgotten about them. I didn't even know I had them. SubhanAllah, from courses that my parents put me in when I was 15, 16, 17. Where basically we did Sharia short courses and whatnot very early on, and this was honestly in that time very rare. run by, the likes of the mashayikh very early on, like even before, for example, with, Sheikh Abdul Salam or, brothers that maybe you don't know, like, Sheikh Ibat, who's now a regular at Reeves bin Musalla with Sheikh Jalal. So, this is early on. But then later on, I suppose, the next major factor after that was, without a doubt, Sheikh Faiz. And I think this isn't just something that's, exclusive to myself, or something that I would say is one of the key elements or reasons behind us getting into this field. I think it's for a number of mashayikh that we listen to and we hear today, and are quite well known in the da'wah, in the sphere of da'wah. We're talking, people, if they hope they don't get upset, I'm using their names, but whether it's Sheikh Jamil or even Sheikh Jalal, Sheikh Arshad Khan, Sheikh Muhammad Khan, Sheikh Bilal Dabbousi, and a few others, all of us were at one stage or another students of Sheikh Faiz. We're talking in early 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4. This was very, very early on. Obviously at the JRYC in Liverpool at the time. Those early years with Sheikh Faiz were absolutely, subhanAllah, I think pinnacle to where we are today.
SubhanAllah, when you mentioned, for instance, when you went back to the certificates and you noticed that your parents had already instilled in you this desire to study the deen, or at least put you in the environment where deen is a part of you. Now, subhanAllah, whenever if we bring in on guests or we have mashayikh coming down and giving courses of parenting, subhanAllah, this is almost like the parenting 101 course that they all try to get us to aim to have within our households. And I find it impressive. May Allah reward them, because we see a lack of that in our community. And even when I look around at the families around myself, the parents aren't the biggest push for, or the reason that the son or the daughter start to become active in the da'wah.
Yeah, they don't advocate for it.
No, definitely.
It's not something that's
if you think that's how it is today, it was much worse than this.
SubhanAllah, exactly. And that's another thing.
It's actually getting a lot better.
That's another thing, SubhanAllah, that I remembered is my mum recently was telling me that when she was younger, growing up in Australia as well, around in the 80s, she would say that, SubhanAllah, the way that they grew up was so traditionally warped, where it was the women were not allowed to pass, I think it was 5 p.m. So the sunlight's still out. The women weren't allowed in the front yard, let alone out with their friends. Like we see the girls today, they're allowed to be out to 10 p.m., going to get coffees, going to get shakes. But at the same time, the boys of the family were allowed to do whatever they wanted.
running amok.
That would mean bringing girls home, for instance, as far as going that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And going to, it was well known that the boys of the family, they would go to the clubs, they would go to the discos. SubhanAllah. So in a time like that, for your parents to really instill that and bring, and it shows us as well the importance of, Muhammad Wardigi as well, his mum, this is what the Shaykh tell me, is that his mum instilled that in him by bringing him to HOYC and telling the Mashayikh, you take care of my son, you guys raise my son. And I honestly believe that is a big pillar or a big credit to him being around the da'wah, being so involved in the masjid. SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, shout out to my mum.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the challenges are different. They definitely do exist today. We do have a different set of challenges, like you mentioned. If you want to say, call it the liberty that our sisters have today is different to what it was. But if you go back to the reason behind that, unfortunately, it wasn't so much deen.
No.
It was more adat and taqalid.
No.
was more tradition and culture.
Absolutely.
You know, so yes, you know, females were not allowed to go out, or our sisters weren't, but majority of the time was based on adat and
No,
taqalid.
they had no
Wasn't it?
balance. They had no Islamic balance, and that's what.
It wasn't ultimately because of Islam.
No.
So I'll give you an example. These same families, and today, if I say to you, for example, if I say to my child, then it's not alien for my child to say to one of their friends, we don't celebrate birthdays, or I can't come to your birthday party. In fact, alhamdulillah, now we're in a time where that knowledge is a bit more
None.
vast. You know, it's a bit
True,
more spread.
true.
So, you know, for a child to say, "Oh, I can't get this haircut," or "I can't go to mixed weddings," or "music is haram," okay, or "celebrating birthdays is haram."
No.
It's a bit more sort of understood now
100%.
by
Yeah.
more
religious
people.
aspect, yeah.
No,
Yes.
100%.
Whereas, and I kid you not, I was literally almost the only child in my school at the time, in the Muslim community, where it was laughed at. What do you mean you can't celebrate birthdays? What do you mean you can't come to my birthday?
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't go to a mixed wedding? What are you talking about? Like how what does that have anything to do with the deen?
Yeah.
Because that's the level of yani, I suppose ignorance that there was.
Yes, yeah, of course.
And it was very, very. In fact, it goes beyond that. Wallahi. And my mother, Allah yarhamha, when she came to Australia, I kid you not, yani, amongst a huge circle of women, she was, and we're talking in her early 80s, right? Or mid 80s. Amongst many women, she's probably the only one wearing hijab.
No.
I'm not saying she was the only one. Of course, there was sisters at that time, and
Yeah.
you know, there was a lot of religious people, but not as widespread as now. Okay, maybe even hijab now has become almost a cultural thing as well.
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, but alhamdulillah, because at one stage it was quite widespread
No.
for, you know, like when I say widespread, like really, really widespread for Muslim women not to wear hijab.
Yeah, yeah.
It was very, very common. You know, so having these ideas back in the 80s and 90s, what do you mean you can't celebrate birthday? Sure.
So yeah, it's crazy.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, and you see it even now with the families that never really got religious, or because alhamdulillah, like what you said, even if the hijab is just widespread because it's just become traditional, alhamdulillah, because of the works of the mashayikh in the
course.
dawah, 100% that's rubbed off well,
Yeah.
and it's just become the normal.
Yeah.
That you know you wear the hijab, but with the families that I guess never became religious, I find that very shocking that, and you see 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, and they're still celebrating their birthdays.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man, grow up. Or
Birthdays and anniversaries.
because and I think that comes from what you were saying, that they were shocked when you would say it's haram.
yeah.
They actually can't believe, or they can't fathom that.
No.
And what do you mean? What's it got to do with Islam? You know what I mean? Birthdays, Islam is two different things, and they don't see it as this is prohibited in Islam. They just see it as this is completely separate. This is our fun social thing, and then that's also religion. We do the religion thing on the side. We go to Jum'ah, and you know.
And this is another reason, and again, this is why I say that, alhamdulillah, yani it's due to the hard work of my parents. Likewise, may Allah Azza wa Jal reward them. That when I came, for example, and I joined the circle of Sheikh Faiz.
No.
Okay. By the way, and if you ask Sheikh Faiz, he's got his own story.
No.
And these go back to Sheikh Zuhair, Sheikh Khalid Isa, Sheikh Hatim, Sheikh Abu Ayman.
No.
You know, Hafidhahum Allah. May Allah yani, Azza wa Jal protect them.
Ameen.
They are also, you know, very much part of the a big part of the reason that he took the path that he did.
Yeah, yeah.
And we know this because he's mentioned this to us. You know, these mashayikh mentored Sheikh Faiz early on. May Allah reward them. Yani, you can
No.
just think of wallah, the reward that
Subhanallah.
because you have to understand. I mean, English du'at, English speaking mashayikh now are many.
No.
Very common.
Yeah,
That's right.
that didn't exist back then. You know, they were far and few.
Yes.
Yani, one can say that what Sheikh Faiz did in his time, in the beginning of his era, in the beginning of his dawah, was honestly, I believe he pioneered. He was like a pioneer of the English dawah in Australia.
No.
you know?
Definitely.
And again, like if you go back to the reason behind how he got to it, it's to these, of course, يعني subhanallah, the mashayikh that were at the forefront of, Da'wat Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Sheikh Abu Ayman, Sheikh Zuhair, and Sheikh Khalid, Sheikh Hatim, and so on. Okay, and I'm sure there was other individuals involved, but subhanallah, like I said, why was it easy for me to accept to be in that circle because alhamdulillah, unlike many brothers, some brothers would come to Sheikh Faiz's lessons in secret. Yeah, I kid you not, Yani. Some brothers would not dare to tell their families that they were a student of Sheikh Faiz. I'm not talking to any particular people you may know today, but there are stories of brothers that because where we going to that extremists or that whatever. That's how it was viewed. Somebody who shared these ideas, especially early on, was viewed as extreme.
So for the viewers that may not know, because about who Sheikh Faiz is, because obviously in the last couple of years he hasn't been in the limelight, he hasn't been so active on social media. So could you give a bit of a...
Well, that's the key word there, social media. You just named Sheikh Faiz's worst enemy.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
But in terms of obviously who he is now, and obviously the fact that he's less seen is different to who he was in his prime. Like the new generation, they're not quite aware of who he was. Like the impact.
How would you describe him, and what was his works in Sydney, or in New South Wales? And that's another thing that I want to say is that. So you guys started in, you said Liverpool now?
Yeah.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
So then now you guys are in Young, which is farmland, New South Wales now?
Correct, yeah.
So what was, for instance, Sydney like with Sheikh Faiz, and how was the move to the farmlands?
So personally, if I was to tell you about my particular journey and how, Sheikh Faiz was involved there, or to talk a little bit about Sheikh Faiz himself. Sheikh Faiz, from the time I met him, he's never been a fan of, big crowds, cities. From the time I've met him, and I know he didn't always live on a farm, but from the time I met him in 2001, he's lived on a farm.
SubhanAllah.
He's always lived on a farm.
Okay.
In fact, you know what? You can ask him this. One of the conditions that he had on all his shura members when we were part of the shura of JYC back then was we all had to own a horse. And we all had to go horse riding once every weekend. This is the He was very, very, very big on this. And subhanAllah, our dedication, wallahi, then was, I don't know, it was different. It was, it was very, very unique. Again, you're talking at a time where all these centers that you know now, they didn't exist.
No.
So it was very foreign as an idea, shura and whatnot. I mean, we understood the word shura because some of us had been exposed to either tabligh, jama'ah, or whatever, and we understood the word and whatnot. But in that scope, like the way that the imara and the way he ran the center. SubhanAllah, it was very, very different. So anyway, Sheikh Faiz always lived on a farm. He's always hated the city. And Sheikh Faiz he's never been one to stick to one particular place for a very, very long time. If you know Sheikh Faiz, that's how he is, and that's how we accept him, subhanAllah. And he knows this. He doesn't like to be, sort of stuck in one particular place for a very, very long time. Especially, if it's out of his comfort zone. Being in big crowds and this and that's not his comfort zone. Binge eating, going to cafes, that's not his comfort zone. That's definitely not his comfort zone. He's always been, subhanAllah, a fitness fanatic.
No.
He's been,
health fanatic.
A health fanatic. Very disciplined in many ways, although some people might say, what do you mean? Very disciplined.
Hardcore.
Yeah. I remember one morning, I've mentioned this to a lot of brothers, after Fajr lesson, and, we'd stay behind, and I'd generally stay behind with him, and either we'd go home together or whatever it was. And I think that morning there was an arbitration or where we were waiting for. I can't remember what the exact circumstance was, but I remember waiting outside, waiting for him, and he come out, and we're talking again 2002, 2003. His chest was like out here, and like he saw that. I looked at him and like, "You all right?" He goes, "I just did 600 push-ups or something." I said 600 or 400 push-ups or something along those lines, and he did. It's not just something. I think I haven't done 400 push-ups in my entire life, but that's how it's very, very disciplined like that, like every single day till this day. Yeah, tabarakallah, he's the age that he is, and still very, very like that. He's very active like that. So he's always loved the farms, loved horse riding, being involved on farms and whatnot. And I suppose subhanallah, so when I moved to Young, and at that time I think he was in Menangle, and then he Dalton, areas people probably haven't heard of, so subhanAllah, like I said, maybe I've been fortunate to have, him as a companion in terms of where we live, throughout my life, because when I moved to Malaysia, he moved to Malaysia. We probably moved for different reasons. I was, I wanted to go and study. He just wanted to go and give da'wah around the world. So subhanAllah, and he was very fast to make the decision. Like, literally one morning, this is in 2004, he said, what are you thinking of? I said, I'm going to Malaysia, inshallah. He goes, I might come with you.
Really?
Like really, just like that, yeah.
And he lived there for how long?
So he was there for about a year. And then Sheikh's always loved Lebanon. His heart's, all of us, because at one stage we all had this, this dream of going and living in Lebanon, the home, the motherland, Bilad al-Sham, Sheikh Jamil has managed to...
he's done it. Yeah, he's done it.
MashaAllah, he's done a good job. Not just Sheikh Jamil, a number of brothers. I know Brother Amir, Sheikh Amir, he just finished his study over there as well in Mahad al-Bukhari. Subhanallah. So he was one of the students of Sheikh Fayez. He was on the Shura at Bukhari House. He's moved to Lebanon. So it's always been something, of course, Abu Adam, maybe a name that you guys don't know.
Sure,
he's one of the OGs as well from JRYC. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of these brothers. So subhanallah, he's always one of that. And I think at this one stage we all travelled. We actually travelled in 2004 to Lebanon. I, at the time, was hoping to study at Mahad al-Bukhari. But Mahad al-Bukhari then wasn't Mahad al-Bukhari today. Wasn't recognised by any... they didn't issue certificate. It was just go and study. I applied to Medina 2 years in a row, didn't get in. And once you get to 25, khalas, you've lost that opportunity. Alhamdulillah, my brother did the same, subhanAllah. Sheikh Arshad, subhanAllah, applied in 1 year from 2 different countries. He got accepted in both. In 2005, subhanAllah. So obviously when I didn't get the opportunity, I started looking for other places. And I remember I checked out Bukhari, Mahad al-Bukhari in Lebanon. And at that time sat with Sheikh Saad, and we had lunch a couple of times, a few times, and khalas, the plan was put together, and there was a house nearby where I was going to stay and everything. And subhanallah, just financially it wasn't viable. It was very difficult to support yourself in Lebanon, even though it wasn't as expensive. But what are you going to do? So anyway, subhanallah, the decision was made. My brother-in-law at the time was going to study in Malaysia. I thought, Malaysia's where you can do a bit of a hustle on the side and support yourself and study at the same. So I ended up going, alhamdulillah. And that was my reason for going. And then Sheikh Fayez was like, I'll come with you.
SubhanAllah, I was saying...
Because he at that time, he couldn't go to Lebanon. So he said, he just wanted to go abroad,
I don't know if it's a Australia thing, like being in the Western country, or if it's particularly Melbourne. But I feel as though we find change very hard. To make a move like that boggles my mind. Like, how do you just decide that of nowhere, I'm going to go to Malaysia? SubhanAllah, I feel as though it's something that we need to work on, though. We have to get used to change, move, go study overseas, experience life overseas. And that's going to give you experience for da'wah anyway. And with everything, there's all walks of life, like for business, for careers. But I feel as though in Melbourne in particular, I'm not sure how it is in New South Wales, but I feel as though we're too comfortable here. We're too comfortable. We don't make the move, or we can't make the big decisions like this. And obviously, like we were saying with Sheikh Fayez, and obviously with Sheikh Abu Ayman, this is something that they tend to make us stray from.
Yeah.
Being too comfortable, not putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. Subhanallah. I think.
Look, if you're not prepared to leave your comfort zone, there's a lot of things you're not going to achieve in life.
That's right, yeah.
This is a fact, yani. You have to be prepared to step out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, if you're happy to live in the bubble that you're in and just accept things as they are, that's fine. One thing Sheikh Faiz instilled in us, and he would always say this, he said, I'm not just teaching to teach. He says, I'm teaching to produce teachers. This is my aim. And early on, the courses were like, they were very strict military, almost, So for 4 years with Sheikh Faiz, we studied a number of books. We did, for example, Fiqh al-Sunnah, Kitab al-Sayyid Sabiq, okay? And with full explanation. We did Al-Kaba'ir, Imam al-Dhahabi, okay? With Sheikh Faiz, we did Kitab al-Tawheed with Sheikh Faiz.
That would have been an
This was all in
experience.
4 years?
This is over 4 years. So some were Fajr lessons,
No.
some were Friday night lessons, and Thursday lessons. Okay, and one of the books we did in English was Correcting People's Mistakes. We did that book as well. Okay, The Etiquettes of a Student of Knowledge. So these are books that we studied with Sheikh Faiz, and he had a circle of students that attended these lessons, and if they didn't attend, there was repercussions. There was consequences. And you really made to feel guilty.
Yeah.
But you know what? SubhanAllah, one may say, he can't tell me what to do. But we, SubhanAllah, we had, I don't know, we had that, you want to call it allegiance or what, we had that khalas, like, if he said, he's our Amir, if he says something, we have to do it.
No.
He really instilled this idea.
Loyalty.
Yeah. Like he really instilled this
Yeah,
idea
it's
of
part of tarbiyah as well.
Yes,
No,
tarbiyah
yes,
and
100%.
imara and listening. So and so we did it. So in doing so, what Sheikh Faiz did was instilled the love of propagation
No.
in our hearts. Like, I remember speaking to one sheikh that studied with Sheikh Faiz, Sheikh Aslam, right? He was formerly from Melbourne. And he says, I remember Faiz when he was in Medina. And he just couldn't wait. He just wanted to get out there and just, like he had that urge, that zeal. He wanted to be out there and propagate. He wanted to spread what he'd studied, because you have to understand, to Sheikh Faiz is like, Islam, deen changed my life.
Yeah.
Because he didn't grow up somewhat as conservative, but then subhanallah, his life changed. Sheikh Faiz
Pretty young. He changed.
as a youngster he was more on the sportsman path. He was like an athlete, so to speak. He was, at one stage, he was a boxer.
No.
He was, I don't know if you're aware, he was Golden Gloves champion. I think New South Wales Golden Gloves champion. And then when he injured his hand, he got into bodybuilding. And at one stage, just before, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal granted him the hidayah that he granted him, and he took the path of going to study. I think he was at one stage going to compete in the US, like a Mr. Olympia form. He went, rather than going to that, he went to Medina. Subhanallah. So, and tabarakallah, Sheikh has this ability to memorize. I mean, obviously we all know he studied in the faculty of hadith. And I kid you, I don't remember the day Sheikh got up and spoke and had a paper in front of him. I actually don't remember a time in the 20-something years I've known him in da'wah. Unless it's studying from a book.
No.
Never. He has this ability to. We used to make fun of him. We say, Sheikh, what do you do at night? Do you read a thesaurus? Because he has like
a lot of words.
A word
right,
for the same with the same meaning,
right.
like 10 different words that have the same meaning.
You see it in his speech, and obviously you're a person who knows the man. When he's not on the mihrab.
Yeah.
Sorry, when he's not on the minbar.
Yep.
So you know the man when he's not on the minbar. So what was it like? Were you present for any of those moments? Like, when did you know that? Obviously, him speaking and giving these speeches, that's one thing. But when did you know? Oh, this is more than just your average lesson. This is more than just your average speech. A lot of people are starting to rock up, and people are starting to take notice, and people beyond just Muslims are starting to take notice. You know, internationally, he's starting to become recognized. To this day, you can search his you can still find some of his old speeches in his old classes on the internet and this and that, and incredibly popular. Yeah. And a lot of people were attending, and a lot of questions, and the way that he speaks, it used to give.
It's capturing.
Like,
it's capturing.
it was,
Very
yeah,
capturing.
But also it at some point he started to people that the types of people that you don't want taking notice of, you started taking notice of. International media organizations and outlets, and starting to talk about this person is a danger. Even though it's not really even, they never looked at the substance of the speech, but it was more the style, the way they used to give it. And people like that often get caught. I'm not sure if you're aware of he's in Germany. He's also a revert, somewhat similar, Pierre Vogel.
Yep.
And he went through the same sort of thing, legitimate student of knowledge, this and that. But in Germany, he was very hated because he was very good at what he was doing, but the way he used to deliver it used to scare the German people. They used to be like, oh, this guy's just like Muslim Hitler. You know what I mean? Especially him. Was that the same sort of thing when it came to Sheikh Faiz, or did you see that? Did you notice? Oh, he's more than just a.
You know what? Subhanallah, Sheikh Faiz scared Muslims.
No.
Subhanallah, but again, why? Because you don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
And this is for us what us, was quite captivating, that he told it how it is, he called a spade a spade.
Yep.
That's to us, that's how it was. A lot of my father's friends. Okay, I mentioned I wasn't going to say what background my father's from, but my father comes from an Ikhwani background. And people know this about my father. Very much so. But subhanAllah, my father, in having a very, very strong Ikhwani background, was very open to the idea that I was attracted to and loved Da'wah Salafiyah. My mother, Allah yarhamha, she was hardcore follower of Da'wah Salafiyah. Okay. And, my father, having grown up in Kuwait, lived in Kuwait since he was 18, 19. And I was born there. My mother was born there. Allah yarhamha. So, the Da'wah Salafiyah in those countries is
known.
Quite, known, and it's quite vast. So, some people in the community actually say to my father, how do you let your son go with what they called back then Wahhabiyah? You're Ikhwani. My father's like, what's the problem? What's the problem? He's going and learning from those that are teaching him Qala Allah wa Qala Rasul. Sure, is it about factions now and gangs and what? SubhanAllah, we're all Muslims.
Yes.
So and again, SubhanAllah, may Allah reward my father for having this mindset. Okay, like I said, when I say he had that background, I mean he had that background. Like he really had that background.
Yeah.
Legit that background.
Yes.
Right. But he didn't have a problem with the path that we had taken. No problem at all. At all. So Sheikh Faiz, scared many people. Like I said, Muslims. No, don't go listen. That's why I said to you, a lot of brothers actually would go to his lessons in secret.
No.
They couldn't tell their parents because he was this extreme. But in reality, and obviously for this same reason, he captured the attention of either the media, even with the authorities. There was back and forth a cooperation, a relation there, but there was a very cooperative. At the end of the day, I mean, when you know what he's about, and
No.
he speaks what he sees as the truth, and at the end of the day, what's preached here is freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
So,
You can't stop it.
I think what the Muslim community get intimidated by, I believe, and to be honest, I think till today, why Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah Australia is looked at in the same way as they would have looked at Sheikh Faiz at the time, and how they perceive Sheikh Abu Ayman till today, is because they have a way of teaching. For instance, we're talking about the tarbiyah of really following your leader, listening and obeying, and following the Sharia to the T, to not just by stating the hadith and the ayat, but actually living it. You said, like, for instance, how he would put conditions on his shura.
Yeah.
And this is something that we see with our mashayikh throughout the organization.
Yeah.
And that in itself is, I believe, we were talking about putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. That makes people in the outside uncomfortable, because our community, they're so laxed and they're so used to being, chill and taking the deen as if, like, they approach the deen that you approach it in a way where, you're comfortable and you do some goodness, but anything that interrupts your lifestyle, your work, your career, they don't really recognize that. And I think that the mashayikh, alhamdulillah, that we are surrounded with, they've taught us and they live by this idea that Islam is about sacrifice. It's about putting away your ego. Really, to think about it, imagine a group of men all listening to this one man, your sheikh, your teacher, and doing all sorts of what seems to be crazy things. One day he's learning Quran and Sunnah, and next day he's riding a horse. The guy's never dealt with animals in his life.
Yeah.
Sure, he bought a horse. He's into horse riding. They don't understand this, and I honestly think that this is something that we need to normalize more with our community. To being more comfortable with having a leader, having a teacher, a guide. You see many of the people of our areas, they don't have a sheikh to go to. They don't have a center that they go to for fiqh issues. They don't even know what their aqidah is around. Which sheikh do I follow? What principles when it comes to Ramadan time? What do we follow? Do we follow global siding? Everyone looks at it as what everyone's doing. Khalas, that's what it is. But they don't actually know the reason why.
Yeah. Look, for starters, people are scared to break or go against the status quo.
No.
Khalas, people have a phobia of stepping outside of their bubble.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Right.
If anything, for me, it's what I think encourages me, knowing that you're going against the status quo, and I'll tell you why. So when you say, for example, with like Sheikh Faiz and what made us gravitate towards him, for me, and subhanAllah, this is one of the things I wanted to mention tonight, and I didn't end up mentioning it, was a lot of people today, they judge or they take as a criteria what the majority are doing.
No.
I'll give you an example. Okay? I don't want to get into this whole debate, but I'll give you an example. Probably going to open up a can of worms, but who cares? The Ash'ari.
No. Wow.
Biggest argument
There we go.
Biggest argument. Majority of the scholars are Ash'ari, or most of the world's Ash'ari, but you somehow are right. So yeah. Pretty much. How? The Prophet ﷺ prophesied this. Just because the majority of the world have, a manhaj or an ideology that's not correct doesn't mean I have to make it. That doesn't make it correct. That's not the criteria.
No.
The criteria, the Prophet ﷺ set it out for us. Prophet ﷺ says, "تركت فيكم ما إن تمسكتم به ما لا تضل كتاب الله وسنتي." أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Prophet ﷺ made it clear. He set the criteria to distinguish right from wrong.
No.
It's not rocket science. I left with you two things. If you hold on to them, you will not be led astray. You will not be misguided. You will not be misguided. Now, these groups or factions or sects are going to claim that we're holding on to Quran, but you're not.
No.
Because you can't propagate what you're propagating without going back to an individual other than the Prophet ﷺ and other than the companions. You can't. I put that challenge forward. I don't want. I'll never get into a debate with them because you're talking to a brick wall. I won't bother. But one of the biggest arguments they always is the majority is on this path, so surely they must be right. So what? So if that is what I'm going to take as a criteria,
No.
then what happens to the hadith of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم? بدأ الدين غريب وسيعود غريب كما بدأ طوبى للغرباء. Where do I go with this hadith? So if I'm a stranger, you know what? That gives me comfort.
No. Definitely.
That gives me as a Muslim comfort. So if my way of thinking is something that is frowned upon by the majority of people, then inshaAllah ta'ala, for me, that's a sign that we're doing something right. You know? And again, this was one of the things that, you know, yes, if you're going to look at it, ad-da'wah salafiyya, the da'wah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is not the most prevalent and widespread ideology or da'wah. I view it to be the most correct because I see that it follows the criteria set by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Kitabullah wa sunnati. That's what it's based on. It's not based on individuals. It's not. So this is what obviously Sheikh Faiz preached to us very early on. You know, at one stage we're actually looked upon as people that hate Sheikh Faiz, hate the madhahib. Look, nobody hates the madhahib. What makes you think that we hate the scholars behind these madhahib? We have high respect for them, and we learn from them, and we learn from their knowledge.
It's the simple mind that they have, because we say, you can't just follow one madhab blindly.
Well, you shouldn't follow blindly.
No.
You shouldn't follow anyone.
They take it as if, khalas, they don't like the madhabs.
You shouldn't follow me blindly. I shouldn't follow Sheikh Faiz blindly. We shouldn't follow Sheikh Abu Ayman, our beloved Sheikh, blindly. And Sheikh Abu Ayman will tell you the same thing. Sheikh Faiz will say, as did these scholars. So where's the problem? Where's the problem in this? This is the manhaj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I left with you two things, khalas. Stick to those two things. And of course, now people are going, so how do you interpret these things? Yeah, we use the interpretation of the scholars. But all of these scholars are, can get it right and can also get it wrong.
No, definitely.
So this idea, people didn't like. Who are you to say that they can? They say this about themselves. So subhanAllah, again, this is one of the things that for me, being a student of Sheikh Faiz early on, gave me comfort. I said, you know what, subhanAllah, if if going against the status quo is the sacrifice I'm going to have to make, well, so be it. So be it, because this is something the Prophet prophesied.
No.
Subhanallah.
What would you say is, because you've spoken about obviously the status quo and this and that, and we've talked about how things have changed from the past until now in terms of people taking religion more seriously, people starting to realize that, religion and Islam is more important than cultural practice. And now if you're trying to re-establish Islam back into the hearts and minds of the people, obviously the best way for any individual is to start with himself and then his own family and then go further than that. How do you, if you're breaking away from the status quo, how do you establish that as the norm? If you're breaking away from culture, how do you establish Islam?
Again, there's many things you can do, but one thing I can say to you is, I think as a community, as an establishment, I think the da'wah in itself is on the rise. Okay? Again, subhanAllah, one of the beautiful things, and Sheikh Abdullah Albaf yesterday when he was speaking about, I just happened, I love seerah, and and I just happened to be in his lesson, and it was beautiful because one of the things that, and I think he alluded to this point yesterday, one of the things from studying seerah, okay, or shama'il, is seerah helps you to understand where we're headed, right? So I'll give you an example. Personally, I look at what's happening in Palestine and in the Muslim world, and what the a'da, the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal, are doing, and the atrocities, they are committing. And for me, having studied history, I take it as a bit of a glad tiding, as a bit of a bushra, because I know that history is only repeating itself. We all see the atrocities that have been committed in Gaza, by the Israeli, Zionist regime. And we speak of these numbers and we freak out. Look at how many. Taban, first and foremost, understand Allah Azza wa Jalla is fully aware of what's happening there. And we think we're upset out of mercy. Allah's mercy is all over it.
No, that's right.
But I also see it as history repeating itself. And for me, I think the nahda, the way up, is closer than we think. Well, again, go back, if you study history, and every subhanAllah 100 and so years,
right, that's right,
there's an uprise of Islam again, an uprise of da'wah. If you go back and study the history, after the Prophet ﷺ, study the history of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. Okay, during the Crusades, we speak about in the past 18 months, or almost heading towards 2 years now, right? 20 months almost now. How many innocent have been, murdered? Maybe 50, 60,000. Allahu alam. The number could be bigger.
Could be more. They say, yeah, could be more.
Could be 100,000, 120,000. It's a huge number. And I think two things we take from it. Number one, it shows that we're lacking a lot, and that's why we're facing what we're facing. We're going through what we're going through. But also, if you look back at it, we speak about it as if it's never happened before.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
We actually speak about it like this has never happened. The Muslims have never been persecuted in such a manner. What are you talking about, ya akhi? Ya akhti, what are you talking? Who made you believe that? What makes you think that?
SubhanAllah, yeah, that's I see that a lot.
In the span of, and we're talking now. There's bombs and that 2-ton bombs and 1-ton bombs that can kill in one go, in a split second, thousands of people. Yes. So this number is huge, but it's not foreign to the Muslims. In one of the Crusades, just before the time of Nur ad-Din Zangi and Imad ad-Din Zangi and Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, rahimahumullah, it's said, and this is recorded in the books of the Christian priests and whatnot, recording the events of the Crusades. In the span, I think, of 1 week, 70,000 Muslims were butchered.
SubhanAllah.
Men, women, and children. Babies were pulled out of the stomachs of our sisters.
No.
Women. The worst atrocities. Murdered in the most horrific ways.
With the Mongols as well.
Yeah. And not long after that, 50, 60 years after that, after Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. So atrocities have been committed against Muslims for centuries. But what happened not long after that? Islam was victorious. Muslims were victorious. Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, the work that was begun by Nur ad-Din, Imad ad-Din and Nur ad-Din was completed by Salah ad-Din. This didn't happen overnight. It took time. And even how many people speak about Yusuf ibn Tashafin and his work, Yusuf of Morocco. This is foundations were set early on. SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
So when you look at history like that and you see what's happening today, you say, you know what? Inshallah, better times are coming.
No, definitely. I think even just, subhanAllah, the awareness that's been happening around Gaza.
Huge.
You know, but what shocks me is that before this war, or at the start of it, there were a lot of people that past their 20s had no clue about who were the leaders, for instance, of Israel. For instance, Benjamin Netanyahu. They didn't know who this person was. And they lived 20, 25 years of their life so unaware of what has been going on in the Muslim world.
Yeah.
So unaware of the massacres that have happened to our Muslims in Iraq, in Afghanistan. And it was, but alhamdulillah, obviously, as we said, it's a good starting point where the awareness is widespread. But it also is shocking that, subhanAllah, like, how did you live all your life so clueless and so unaware? And that's because of what's happening at home.
Well, it's because of lack of da'wah. And
definitely,
this is probably
that's
to
right.
answer your question, Akhi Muhammad, how do you encourage people to go against the status quo, or to change the status quo? I think what it comes down to is it expresses the importance of da'wah. That's the only way.
Yeah.
That's the only. How did we get to where we are?
No.
Through the da'wah of our beloved mashayikh, by the will and grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so this is a legacy that needs to continue. This is a legacy, and this is why, subhanAllah, like again, going back 20-something years, and even before that, maybe with Sheikh Abu Ayman and Sheikh Zuhair and the likes, and their mashayikh, whether it's Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, or Ibn Uthaymeen, or Sheikh Albani, rahimahullah, and before that, what was their legacy? Not just to propagate and to teach the people Islam, to produce those that are going to teach.
No, that's right.
It becomes an ongoing legacy. And this is where our focus needs to be.
Definitely, yes.
You know?
So
And I think it's getting better. I
yes,
believe,
yes,
Allah Alam,
alhamdulillah.
it's getting a lot better.
Definitely. I think the da'wah scene is growing and it's becoming more enticing to the youth.
Yeah.
And maybe I think before we wrap it up, since we got to it anyway, and I like to speak about this, especially with the guests, is talking about the importance of da'wah, talking about the importance of being involved in the da'wah. What would you say is an advice for the listeners, or a piece of motivation, to get active with their local masajid, to see the value and the also the consequences of not making the action today for their future?
Very simple. If you want to think, it's very simple. We need to understand that the reality of the matter is we are here today. We don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. This is the reality. طيب, why am I here? What's the purpose of my existence? Is it to expand in the pleasures and the fantasies and whatever of this world? Or is there a greater purpose behind my existence, behind our existence? Allah Azza wa Jal mentions it very clearly. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I've only created jinkind and mankind but to worship me alone.
No.
So we have to teach people first of all this point. We have to propagate this point. We have to let this point sink into their hearts and minds that we're here temporarily. This, and eventually we have a purpose. We have a purpose.
No.
And what is that purpose? A purpose to worship Allah. Okay, how do I go about that? Go back to the fundamentals. Teaching Tawheed. By teaching Tawheed and avoiding Taghut, as is mentioned, wajtanibu Taghut. So teaching these basic fundamentals. And again, when you teach Tawheed, you teach people to have a love for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal and a hatred for displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No.
So it's important to teach these fundamentals. Like you don't meet someone and speak to someone and just focus on oh Allah, you can't. Okay, you want to say to someone you can't celebrate a birthday, or you can't have that haircut, or you can't be, engaged in non-marital relations and so on.
It'll never work.
But why?
It's the
Why?
fundamentals.
So you got to teach the fundamentals.
But how about if yeah, but we have, the Mashaykh from Sydney, they come, I'll send my kids to the special events, and I have Brother Wardigi at HOIC and the Mashaykh at HOIC. I send my kids to the mosque and khalas. I'm busy with work, I got my career, and I'll leave it to the leaders to take care of my children. And I'll leave it to them to do the dawah events. I'll leave it to them to spread the dawah.
Quran. I believe this is a very
Is that how the
profound-
best of examples were? What happened to كلكم راع كلكم مسؤول عن رعيته? Did the Prophet ﷺ say some of you are ra'i and some of you are responsible for the flock? No. This responsibility is a collective responsibility. People need to understand this. Wallahi, it's very lazy. It's very lazy parenting to think this way. In fact, shame on such parenting. Prophet ﷺ made it very clear. كلكم راع. Okay, even the slave has a responsibility on their shoulders. We don't have slavery today. But when they were slaves, they had the Prophet ﷺ saying, you're responsible, you as well. I'm a slave. I don't even have anything. How am I responsible? How am I a shepherd for my flock? SubhanAllah. Very clear. كلكم راع أبدا ما في. There's no escape. Every single one of you is responsible for their flock. And every single one of you will be asked about your flock. What are you going to say to Allah Azza wa Jal when He says, why didn't your child do this? And why didn't you teach your child? Well, I sent him to the center. This is just part of your responsibility, but it's not the entire responsibility.
No.
No, wallahi, we need to change this lazy ideology. Whether it's mothers or fathers. Wallahi, and look, I'm in this sphere, in this education field, and I see it all the time.
Yes.
Wallahi, many parents I know send their children to school, wallahi, just to
Get them out of the house.
yeah. And you see, because what they do with them when they go home. They complain when we give them holidays and why do you have children? Well, are you happy with yourself? I brought a child after the will of Allah Azza wa Jalla into this. Why did you have children? They're a responsibility. They're an amana. The biggest problem we have today, and we'll probably finish with this, and I know it's going to probably spin you out a bit, as parents, is we have two extremes. Problem is, we say no, and the problem is, we don't say no. Either we take one extreme and it's no to everything,
Or the other extreme. And
or it's
yes
the
to
other
everything.
extreme where we don't know how to say no to our children. Mum, can I get a phone? Yeah, there's a phone. Mum, yeah, there's this. Dad, can I get this? Yep, there's this. Why? Why does your 10-year-old child need a phone? Wallah, it blows my mind away. Why does your 13-year-old need a phone? Why? Why is it a must? Why is it a necessity? I have to get him a phone. I have to get her a phone. Why are you that lazy that you're flicking through social media all day and your child's doing the same?
No.
You don't know what they're looking at, what they're exposed to. Or we have the other extreme. It's no to everything. And that child, eventually what happens? You keep pulling something, it breaks. Eventually that child's going to rebel.
Yes.
We have to strike that balance. We have to strike that balance. So unfortunately, today we have one of two extremes, and we need to escape that mindset. You need to learn that you can't say no to everything, but you should say no to some things as well. We have a problem with this today. That needs to change.
Allah
That needs to
musta'an.
be fixed.
Definitely. Jazakallah khair, ya Sheikh.
وإياكم.
It's
الله
a
يحفظكم.
pleasure to have you, and Inshallah, in the future, we'll do another episode with you.
Inshallah
بإذن
ta'ala.
الله تعالى.
For now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Assalamu
barakatuh.
wa barakatuh. May Allah reward you. Allah barak feekum.
وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين